Hey guys, today we're going to talk about me growing up with a narcissist and how he affected my whole life, even after I stopped being friends with him for over a decade. The reason why I'm doing this video is because narcissism is very insidious, and once you are friends or come into contact with someone who has narcissism and they're manipulative, it can really just destroy your life without you even realizing it. So that's why I'm doing this. I want to just bring awareness to narcissism and how it can just get into your life, and it's incredibly hard to get away from. So we'll provide some tips at the end of this video, so stay till the very end. So I grew up with a guy, and I met him when I was 14. He was a year younger, and he was probably the first bad kid that I met in school. He was a lot shorter than me. He was agile. He was fast, and he was very smart. So there was something about him. He had a lot of charisma, and he just seemed. He was very well spoken. He was a Cancer, very articulate, high IQ. But he had horrible senses. He could barely see and he could barely hear because he had polio when he was a little child. So he snuck out of his house every night. He was very deviant. He had no concern about his rules. His parents gave him rules. He could care less about his parents. He was really mean to his mom. And he spoke to her like he was a little adult. There was one night that she was drinking wine, and he was like, "Mom, why are you such a bitch when you're drunk?" And this is coming from a 15-year-old, and I'm just like, what the, I never heard anyone talk to their parents like that. And he had a stepdad who he couldn't stand. And I think what happened at a very young age is that he really loved his mom. They were very close. But she got a divorce, and he was very sensitive, I believe. And when she got a divorce and met this new guy who became his stepdad, I think he never let her. He never forgave her for that. I think he had the Oedipus Rex syndrome, where he loved his mom so much but hated the dad. I think he loved his real dad, but he moved away. So he pranked everyone, and he got into a lot of fights. So he learned how to fight when he was really young, and it seemed like he was always getting beat up, but he had a tremendous pain threshold, so he didn't really show a lot of emotion. I remember pinching his arm one time as hard as I could, and he didn't even flinch. So he had some kind of pain threshold that was unbelievable. He could fall off of his dirt bike and get right back up on it and win the race. He got to the point where he was so bad that his parents kicked him out when he was 16. And they had a little rental house, so they just moved him there. So he had his own house when he was 16, and he did whatever he wanted. He stayed up all night reading comic books and playing pranks on people. And then eventually he started hopping trains. So I didn't see him for months at a time. And he'd come back with these tremendous stories of his adventures. But I couldn't get rid of him. I knew I was different. I knew I was in a different social class than he was. But I had low self-esteem as well. So there was something that always made me come back to him, because he still had moments of being a really nice guy, and he had a lot of charisma, and when you were with him, he made you feel special, at least in the early years. Later on in life, all of his friends were always looking for that time when he was really a nice guy and treated us, like we were really special. But in later life, that was less and less. And I'll get to that in a minute. So he manipulated all of his girlfriends, and he had to have the most beautiful girl in town, and they were always blonde or light brunette, and they were arm candy. And he got to the point where he could manipulate them, and they would do these things for him that were just ridiculous. I remember one time, I mean, he'd just get to the point where he would order them to do things and they would do it. And I didn't know how he did that to them. I knew that I was manipulated by him, and he was always playing pranks on me because I was gullible. I had Asperger's, and so I took everything literally. So he would lie to me and I would believe it. That was pretty much our dynamic growing up, is that he would lie to me with these elaborate lies because he was so well read that he was really good at these elaborate lies. And he never broke a smile or anything. You could never tell when he was lying. It was, he had no feelings, basically. So he could just create anything he wanted, and he would just hold a poker face the whole time. So he manipulated his girlfriends, and they would always cry, but then they would do what he'd say. And all of his girlfriends lasted, over 7 years, which is phenomenal. But when they broke up, it was to the point where it was such a bad breakup that he just had to let them go because it was so bad. But they went through hell before finally getting, out of his life. But he did manage to have 2 kids, but he got a divorce and he would only visit his kids on the weekends. So at one point, he said that he doesn't lose. He says, I don't lose. But looking at his life, he only has his kids on the weekend. I kind of think he did lose with that battle for his children because he only got to see them twice a week. So he constantly lied to me and he pranked me. And I got to the point where I was drinking a lot. And we used to drink together. And we both worked in the restaurant business. In fact, one time he was training me at a new job and I had a heart attack at work. We drank tequila the night before. It was Cinco de Mayo. So when I started saying that I didn't feel good and I started to turn white and beads of sweat were rolling down my face, he thought I was just trying to get out of the job. So he was like, dude, don't be a dick. I don't want to be here either. But I did have a heart attack and I was airlifted to the state hospital. So he had to work that day by himself anyways. So he did things that were kind of funny, but it was usually at someone's expense. So I started to drink heavy, and he would do things to trip me out, like putting beer bottles on my roof and then saying that I did it. And I was like, there's no way I would want to throw beer bottles on my roof. There was another time that my emergency lights were flashing on my car overnight, and he said that I did it and my blacked out drunkenness. There was another time that he smeared toothpaste all over my lips when I was drunk and passed out, and then he took pictures of it and showed all his friends and then said that I did it because I was so wasted. There's no way I did that. So these pranks were getting more elaborate and more sneaky, and I just couldn't pin it on him. There was no proof that he did it. And he was a flat out liar. So he would just say, no, I didn't do it. You did it. And if anyone ever threatened him, he got violently aggressive. If anyone looked at his girlfriend the wrong way or spoke to her in the wrong way, he would say he was going to kill them. And he would confront these people because he got good at fighting. Even though he was only like 5'8" and 180 pounds, he got good at fighting. But he got beat up more than he won. In fact, 1 year he got 3 black eyes in 1 year. So his game was starting to crumble around him. And the last year that I hung out with him, he was very angry, and he was addicted to Klonopin, and he was trying to get off of it. And he was very upset that his wife at the time was trying to move out, trying to get away from him, and his mom wasn't speaking to him anymore. And I was moving out of that town, so he was upset that I was leaving as well. We weren't friends anymore, but he would still come around because his friends were dwindling. There was one time when I was drinking, and I was with a girl that was drinking as well, and it was a very rocky relationship, and my friend came over with his girlfriend, and I made the mistake of making a pass at his girlfriend while I was drinking, and he was like, dude, he saw me put my hand on her back while we were sitting on the couch, and he was like, dude, I'll sock you right now in the face. I got upset and I left. But what he did was far worse, because after I left, he got my girlfriend at the time to basically do, sexual things with his girlfriend. So he was very kinky, and he liked getting me back. And so I realized that he got my girlfriend at the time to do stuff with his girlfriend, and he watched. So that really irritated me, because I didn't trust my girlfriend at that time, after that especially, and it made me really upset with him. So I didn't talk to him anymore. But he would still come over, be like, hey, what's up? So eventually I finally got to leave that town, and we didn't talk anymore. And that was about 8 years ago. And I still have dreams about him, because that's how insidious he got into my brain. And that's why it was incredibly hard for his girlfriends to leave him, because he would be charming one minute, but then he would be a jerk for the next day. And everyone hoped that he would just be nice, because we were hoping for that one little glimmer of his charm, like he had in his 20s. But in his 40s, he was just more of a jerk than nice. And he was very upset because his plans were foiling against him. And that's narcissism. In fact, one time a girl at a party looked at him straight in the eyes and said, "You are a manipulator." And girls couldn't get away from him, and guys thought he was crazy, with his wild adventures and his stories. But towards the end, I don't think he had a lot of friends, and he was very upset. And that's where I left him. But I still have dreams about him, because he was part of my life, even though I didn't want him in my life. He was just there. It was a small town, and I couldn't get away from him. So that's it, guys. Do you have a narcissist in your life? Can you relate to this? Leave a comment under this video, and we'll talk to you soon.